Hello, and welcome to Business Over Brand, Create to Generate Week. Today's topic is best practices for taking your business online. So I'd like to give a really warm welcome to our panelists today. We have Maureen Ragalie, who is the Director of Generators Fellowship.Art program. We have Meg Rodriguez, who is the Director of Generators Backline program. And we have Kimberley Bush of the DC Center.
Great. Welcome, everybody. So good to see you. Thank you so much for taking the time to spend a little bit of your Wednesday morning with us. We're thrilled to have you here, and we're thrilled to have a great conversation around taking your business online with our esteemed panelists here with me. So I'd love to jump right in and get some introductions going and have our community get to know you guys a little bit and what you do and who you serve. So Maureen, how about you tell us a little bit about the work that you're doing with Generator and the community that you serve?
Hi, yes, I'm Maureen Ragalie. I am the Director of Fellowship.Art, which is a visual arts accelerator program. I'm based in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and what we do at Fellowship.Art is we follow the accelerator model that businesses follow. We are treating artists like small businesses in that we're giving them money and mentorship to see if we can take their artistic careers to the next level. So yes, the community that I serve is both the Milwaukee visual arts community, but the emerging arts community at large.
Oh, that's very exciting. From a generator perspective, I'd love to hear, Mag, from you, where Backline and the program that you work with fits in.
Yeah, my name is Meg Rodriguez. I'm the program director for the Milwaukee Backline program. Backline is a 12-week musician accelerator program that focuses on enhancing the creative process with the musicians that we work with, offering them funding as well through a $20,000 budget grant, and also connecting them to the music industry. So receiving mentorship from music industry professionals, like managers, producers, A&Rs. And we also work with them to build out their career. So what do the next 6 to 12 months look like? We currently work in Milwaukee. We have a program in Detroit with a partnership with Motown, Capitol Records. And then we also recently launched a program in Cleveland through a partnership with the city of Cleveland. Yeah. That best describes the program.
Yeah, that's very exciting. And these are just two programs that Generator offers. And they're a creative economy incubator, is that right? And we've been really excited to partner with them on this week of programming. I'd love to bring Kimberley in here, right here in DC. Kimberley, can you tell us a little bit about the DC Center and the work that you do?
Sure. My name is Kimberley Bush, and I am the acting executive director for the DC Center, as well as the director of our arts and cultural programs. And the DC Center, we seek to educate and empower and celebrate and connect our lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender communities. And we do that pretty much in 4 key areas: health and wellness, arts and culture, social and peer support, and advocacy and community building. And what I'll be talking with you all primarily about is the arts and cultural aspect of it.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And I feel really honored to hang out with you guys this morning. My name is Marianne Lombardi. I run the DC Creative Affairs office here in DC. And I'd love to jump right into this conversation about taking our business online and what the role that community building plays in that. Who wants to start us off?
Sure. Well, it's during these challenging times, it's very easy to lose connection with our LGBTQ community and our siblings. It's even more challenging, clearly, to continue with working on community buildings because, as we all know, there's no playbook, there's no blueprint. So I know that when I realized that I had to close our doors because of Corona, I had to make very deliberate moves to first and foremost, engage with our clients that rely on our mental health and sexual health services, as well as our facilitators of our peer and support social groups, and assess their needs and what they needed from us to continue keeping our community adhesive and together and continue building it during this challenging time. And we need to figure out pretty quickly how to create recreate the safe, supportive, and secure environment that they were used to, but virtually online. And the solution to that which has become like a kind of a love-hate, trial and error relationship with Zoom and with Google Meet. So it's been very productive, and just it's been very fulfilling, and we've been able to keep everyone still connected. So yeah, that's how I did that with that portion of our of the center. But with the arts and culture, that was a whole different ballgame. I needed to sit down and think about what my priorities were, and I was very, very clear and adamant that I did not want a lapse in time in terms of bringing LGBTQ life stories in film to the community. So I knew that was my main priority. So I had to figure out how to pivot, efficiently and quickly and effectively to do that. And I thought about what helped me with that was thinking about my current resources that I had. So I think that's very key to this, is thinking about your current resources. And I'm happy to talk more about that. I don't want to take up too much time.
Yeah, no, that's great. Meg and Maureen, have you found that you've been through a similar process and navigating, not only transitioning the current work online, but also helping your clients and the artists that you serve do the same?
Absolutely. One of the things that I think is true throughout both the visual arts world, performing arts world, music world, is that so much of what happens in those communities happens in person. Or at least it used to until we were all quarantined. So I think, at least from my perspective in the visual arts world, there was kind of this moment of, okay, we can't do the usual community building activities of studio visits, gallery openings, meeting in person, seeing artwork in person, but the art world has already been playing around with different ideas of how to bring things online. Things like Instagram, virtual exhibitions, etc. So the art world was already kind of shifting that way to begin with, but I think this crisis really kind of made the art world realize that they had to completely shift to these activities that they had kind of considered supplementary to the actual, physically being there, being present, seeing art. Meg, I think you probably also experience a lot of that as well.
Yeah, I think on the programming side, at first it was a little troubling to figure out how do we run a program virtually. But very quickly we realized that more and more people were available because everyone was home. So I think getting a hold of like mentors and people within the music industry was a little bit more accessible. But I think just working directly with the artists that go through the program and then the artists within the community, artists are, very in tune with their emotions, and being around people and performing for people and not having that connection can also affect the creatives. I think there's this expectation that the community thinks, oh, you're finally home, you can work on your album or you can work on your EP. But, there is a connection that creatives and artists need to be around people to feel inspired. And there isn't much of that going on right now that you can do within four walls at home. So yeah, I think navigating that has been the challenging part, because we have all the connections in the world now. We can get a hold of anyone, but there isn't a ton of creativity happening behind closed doors right now. So finding different ways, setting up like bike rides or go to the park and finding different ways that they can feel some of that connection without exposing themselves and putting themselves at risk.
Yeah, very interesting. I'm sorry, Maureen, go ahead.
I'm actually really curious, Meg and Kimberly, if you've experienced this as well. I've been talking with a lot of visual artists, and one of the problems that I didn't anticipate with this crisis is a lot of them can't make the work that they're used to making because they don't have the physical space to make it at their homes, and they don't have access to their studios anymore. And so that has been kind of this major shift in their creative process of like, oh no, I don't have access to the materials, the technology I need, literally the space in order to make the work I'm used to making. How do I continue creating? And I'm sure you guys are experiencing that in your fields as well. Have you come up with any brilliant solutions?
Well, interestingly enough, I am and I'm not experiencing. I'm feeling with filmmakers, their films are already created. So the more of what I'm experiencing, or did in the beginning when we first went into the shutdown, is trying to get them to make the decision that they had to now release that content and let us stream it online versus in brick and mortar with an audience, with a director talk back. So they had to change their thinking about what they envisioned their film presenting. And fortunately, I had 2020 all booked out for my quarterly installation. So I already had my artists with their work already created for the most part. So it was now a matter of, so how do we now present that? What do we do with that? So I've had to, with my current artist installation, which we can talk later on, had to create a virtual art gallery with the work that was still in the center that's closed down, with an artist that, like you said, was stuck in her studio. And so now how do we connect the two? So that's kind of sort of the problems I've been having.
I think I've seen both of those problems. I've seen the artists that have the product ready to go. And now, you know, when an artist releases music, they want to do the event, they want to do the show, they want to go on tour, and that no longer exists. And then, you know, trying to convert them to do the live streaming model seemed like a very obvious thing to do from the beginning, but then that space has definitely become very saturated.
Oversaturated.
Yeah. So just trying to get across. But I think on the creative side, I think I've tried to come up with as many solutions, but there's something about the artist, and I consider myself an artist as a producer myself, and it's like, it's very hard to look at a screen and try to create with you virtually. You know, I think you need to be in the room with people, and there is certain like apps and stuff that I've been introducing, but I've been more focused on like, how can you guys be safe and create in spaces that does allow you to collaborate, especially as things are opening back up, and not everyone's comfortable with that. But I think long term, there has to be a solution whenever the solution comes to allow people to work in the same room, at least on the music creation side.
Have you found that there are you mentioned there are certain apps or any tools that any of you have found that have been useful or helpful or a surprise to you that people are utilizing really well and in interesting ways?
On the music side, Dolby has this app. I think it just might be like a Dolby voice recorder. Let me make sure I have the Dolby on. And what it does, it's for your phone. Like you can record a demo on your phone, and it works really well. Just like on the demo process, like you could even play like a production through your computer and record yourself, and it amplifies the vocals really well, and it makes it sound pretty decent. So as far as like recording demos at home when you don't have professional gear, at least you can like hear it back, or like if you play a guitar or a piano, I've been having a ton of luck on that end and introducing that to artists. There is some like technical apps for like Pro Tools that you can work with. None that I'm willing to like co-sign enough to throw out there because they all have their own problems and glitches. I don't think there isn't a solidified solution yet. I think everyone's working towards it. But I've done like Zoom calls with connected producers and did like writing sessions with songwriters and producers via Zoom. And that has been effective. The hardest part is like most artists aren't audio engineers and they can't actually record their music the right way. So I've been working on putting like little master classes where we can teach artists how to like basic record themselves very basic, and then send it over to a mixing engineer to try to get a better demo. So it's kind of the solution. I know that's a long answer, but no direct solution at the moment for me.
From a visual arts perspective, what Maureen and Kimberly, what have you been helping folks with, app-wise?
Kimberly.
Go ahead.
Okay. You know, as I mentioned earlier, the visual arts world had already kind of started to move online. You know, most galleries have a website. Most artists also have a huge web presence. But those had all been kind of considered supplemental materials to actually seeing the work in person, seeing the exhibitions in person. And, you know, pretty much all visual artists have had to really shift towards this is the only way that people are going to be seeing these exhibitions or these works of art for the near future, at least. I don't think there are necessarily any new fun, cool apps or technology that's being explored right now. I think definitely people have started using kind of like almost Google mapping technology to do 3D versions of their art galleries, etc. Honestly, I think one of the most interesting things that I've seen visual artists do is they've just been essentially using gallery websites, etc., to do kind of group exhibitions. So putting the same amount of thought and effort that you would put into a physical exhibition of artwork, they're kind of mapping out digital space now, thinking about how you display different images of works of art next to each other, and how that visual experience will play out, as well as kind of playing with different ways that you can still experience a work of art while not physically seeing it. So, using really high resolution images of the artwork, using detail images of the work, scale shots. So having a photograph or a video of someone interacting with the work of art, as well as, supplemental materials of, videos of artists talking about the work, etc. All of those are kind of used as a combination to really make up for the fact that you as the viewer can't actually physically see the work or interact with the artist in the same way that you're used to.
In regards to like filmmakers and actually we are coming upon our 10th anniversary of Outright, which is DC's LGBTQ Literary Festival. We're not using any new apps or new platforms, but with film, I've been using VHX.TV, which is a Vimeo affiliate. And the really great thing about that is you can, as a filmmaker, you can upload, your file, you can create a product, so to speak, and then you can have like a website splash page where people can come and actually pay, like on demand, to see your film. So that's what I have been using for my monthly LGBTQ film series. I may be switching to a site called Eventive, which I'm sure you've all heard of, for our film festival, which has its much more extensive and inclusive website. With Outright, we're just going to be doing a lot of embedding from, broadcasting to YouTube and embedding it on our webpage. We are working on how to have an exhibitor hall, which is, if we were in a physical space, we would have 50, 60, 70 exhibitors. We'd have, 3 and 4 different rooms of presenters and writers and speakers. So we're kind of using some of the same technology, but trying to amp it up a little bit to be able to host things on our webpage and make sure that we have as much of a broad reach globally as possible. So I can't say there's any new and inventive apps that I know of, but we're just utilizing the things that have been kind of around, but that have been more amplified and more in need because of what we're going through.
Yeah, I'm curious from your perspective, Kimberlee, in building out a festival, right? Like how, because so much of the festival is there's the content that's a part of it, but then the community experience, the audience experience, and I guess this is the question for all of you, how you balance out not only just transitioning all of that stuff into this virtual space, but then still maintaining that level of community connection, that fan connection in this space where you wouldn't necessarily have that, whether it's from the live performances or whether it's from a festival environment. So like, how are you navigating that as you're putting together these festivals?
It is very challenging, and the one thing that we've been able to do is still host director talkbacks and make sure that we're doing as much outreach to our community around them and making them as accessible, because there's some people who don't have Facebook or Twitter or IG, but YouTube is still around. So we've had to make sure that we just engage with as many filmmakers. I know when we were in brick and mortar, I would see the changes in people's faces and their attitudes after they've had a talk with the filmmaker. You see the film, you want to see the person and talk to the person who actually created it. You want to know what was going on in their head and what made them create that documentary about whatever. So once they have that conversation, they feel a different sense of themselves often, and that can get lost. But it's very important for me to make sure that we still recreate that environment. So it is very important to still have the roundtable discussions, director talk packs, the panels, with as many creatives as possible, and then make sure that we do as much outreach as possible to make sure that as many individuals can be affected by that. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think kind of to piggyback off of what you were saying, it's really hard to kind of, gauge the reaction of viewers, et cetera. And that's certainly something that the art world is really struggling with right now is, yes, you can see everything online, but that sense of community is missing a little bit. And yeah, I don't know that we've necessarily found a good answer to that. We've been doing Zoom artist talks, et cetera. But again, that's, it's a substitution, but not a perfect substitution. Yeah.
It's limited, I agree. What have you been doing, Max?
I think on the performance side, I've been recommending artists to like reach out to venues within the community that have like platforms, and using their social media and working out with them like, hey, can I do my performance? And then also, can we post the content of the live stream on your actual social media page? And there's been some artists that have been doing it, and I think it's a model, talking to some booking agents in the industry. Granted, there's no like advancement, like you can't get paid to do this in most scenarios, but being able to, reach out to different venues that you might tour, an artist has toured in, and say, hey, can I do a live stream performance? And then we upload it on your page and keep it up for like a week. And then you can have your Cash App or your Venmo or promote your merchandise, and find ways to like take the conversation offline after the live stream, whether it's, hey, if you guys enjoyed this, go to my website, sign up for my mailing list, or hey, if you guys want a free sticker, go to my website, and then use that to get their information. So finding ways like that where, yes, there isn't that interaction, but the interaction won't happen within the live performance, but then offline you can create that conversation. I've also seen artists get a little bit more creative on, like, they don't want to perform on live stream. They feel like they're selling themselves short doing that. But what they are doing is they've created a mailing list, and they start reaching out to their top 100 or 200 fans that are engaging with their content and saying, hey, do you want to get on Zoom? Like, one of our current Backline artists taught himself how to juggle through quarantine and started hosting weekly Zoom sessions with his fans on teaching them how to juggle, and started selling like a kit of like juggling stuff, like the balls and through that process, he was able to make some money, but then also built a personal relationship with his fans. So those are the type of stuff that I'm seeing that works a little bit better than just like putting a tripod and performing for 45 minutes to Lord knows how many people are actually showing up. But this way you can engage with your fans and then create sales and find ways to actually create revenue.
Yeah, that's really exciting to hear that they're thinking outside of the box in that kind of way. There does seem to be a real opportunity through all of this of some one-on-one connection, right? Like that one-on-one interaction and developing relationships like that. So that's really exciting to see that happening. And thinking about the connection to the venues, are there what is the role that partnerships play in this? It sounds like that's a really good example of how artists are reaching out to other partners to collaborate in some kind of way that can help both partners. How are you guys seeing partnerships play a role?
On the music side, I see it with artists. What I always encourage artists is like, whatever you already love or whatever products you already love and use, make sure you highlight them in the content you're creating, and then edit that content after you display it and reach out to these brands or tag these brands and see if a bigger partnership can happen. A recent example is this artist Bravo from our fall cohort loves kombucha. And there was a specific kombucha that he liked that was more like a brick and mortar local shop. And he started posting it on his social media, and now they sponsor him. So they actually paid for his last music video, and they give him free kombucha. So I think things like that, where it's like, you have to be conscious of your platform. If you only have 2,000-3,000 followers, you're not going to get Nike to sponsor your video unless you're doing something like really groundbreaking. But locally, I think of local restaurants or local businesses that aren't really being affected or being amplified through what's happening, and find ways to like do what you are doing and connecting it to their brand, but create it first and then reach out, especially when you're up and coming. And then there might, like I said, a lot of times it's going to be free products, but free product can like turn into a paid opportunity long term.
Yeah, that's really exciting. Kimberly and Maureen, are there other ways that you guys are finding partnerships or making an impact?
I mean, I think partnerships are extremely integral. If I didn't have the robust and healthy relationships with the creatives that are in my sphere of influence, my effectiveness would be somewhat limited. So, I mean, I think that the partners that people I partner with are other organizations and sometimes other film festivals, because they can assist with bringing people to the table that I may not otherwise be able to do so. So there's cross-promoting, cross-marketing. And so I will go to, say, Black Film Festival, DC Shorts Film Festival, which I used to be the ED of, and say, hey, so I have this film that targets both. It's a short film, African-American film. Can we all get together and cross-promote it? And that's been extremely helpful, and another way of community building, because what's most important is getting the work out to be seen. And so there's, like I said, cross-promoting, marketing in terms of the partnerships I have. And sometimes I realize that having other partners, we can help subsidize expenses. So that also is a way to partner with other people. So that's what I have found helpful in regards to either film or our theater festival or our literary festival, is basically just touching base with other similar organizations or film or festivals and offering a community partnership involvement.
In the visual arts world, I've really been fascinated by, there's something going on in the gallery world right now where the bigger galleries, kind of the mega galleries all over the world, have started really helping to promote smaller galleries in the same region. And, part of that is self-serving in that these mega galleries really rely on the smaller galleries to, these smaller galleries are essentially feeders to the mega galleries. So eventually the artists that the smaller galleries represent will end up being represented by these larger galleries. So the bigger galleries are kind of using their websites, their social media to highlight these smaller galleries, highlight the artists that they represent, and help. They're literally helping sell works for these smaller galleries, which is, I think, both amazing and also just interesting in that, they're part of the same ecosystem. So they realize that these smaller galleries need to survive in order for the larger galleries to survive. So they're all kind of sharing their client lists, sharing their email lists, helping cross-promote in a really interesting way right now. And we're also seeing that happening on the platforms. Art fair platforms are doing the same thing. Art e-commerce sites are doing the same thing. They're really trying to help all of the galleries survive, which I think is really interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm interested in the commerce side of this work, right? Like, and how this transition to a primarily virtual environment is either impacting in a positive or a negative way the commerce opportunities. The juggling thing is an awesome example, right? Because it's a new product, it's a new service, it's a new thing that adds another income stream, albeit probably small, but still to what that artist is doing. But I'm curious, like in the film festival environment, right? Like these live showings of those films have a direct impact on distribution. People need to go see them so that a film can get bought and then distributed. And so I'm curious how this process has been impacting some of that, right? Like how it has been impacting a little bit of the commerce opportunity, right? And even these art sites, right? Like has it improved, like increased the opportunity for people on them, or even from a music standpoint, sort of how is it impacting commerce?
I think for film, it depends on the film. Like there have been a few films that I, at one point in time, had access to, like in January or February. One of them being Disclosure, which is now on Netflix. Another one being Welcome to Chechnya. I had access to those. Well, not Welcome to Chechnya, but Disclosure. And there's a third one that I would have been able to have incorporated into my monthly film series, obviously paying, screening fees and rights and things of that nature. Which would have been, very financially beneficial for my nonprofit. But, once COVID came around, those films were like, no, we're going to wait to see if we can get bought up by HBO or, Netflix or whatever. So, which is, please go off, Godspeed, be prosperous. And I want that for those films. But it then made it so that I couldn't screen those films with the community. So there's been that kind of an impact that's happened. And so either it's delayed me being able to see a film because either they were trying to, premiere at Outfest or premiere in New York or whatever, or like I said, they decided we're going to go for the big bucks and rightfully they should and get, screened in a bigger way.
Does that mean that they're bypassing the festival then? Is that what you're saying? Whereas they would normally go to the festival to get screened and then get bought, so that they're bypassing the festival?
There were some films that have bypassed the larger film festivals. There's often an opportunity to still be at the larger film festivals and then still get picked up by another big player. But yeah, there's some films that, they're like, we can't screen to a big audience. We can't have Laverne Cox, come in and give a Q&A or a talk. So let's just keep it, hold on to it, and see what else we can do with it. And you see what happened with that, which is, again, glorious and amazing. But it did, cause the film festival circuit to not have the film. Did I answer your question?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. That's super helpful. Maureen?
Yeah, in the visual arts world, art e-commerce platforms are seeing a lot more action than they used to. And, galleries have been seeing a lot more virtual sales happening as well. But another really interesting trend happening in the art world is a lot of artists are kind of foregoing the gallery route and choosing to just kind of represent themselves and choosing to spend more time promoting themselves on Instagram, et cetera, and doing sales directly through Instagram and, or through their website or social media in general, which is, I think, a fairly new trend in the art world. But I think we're seeing a lot more artists doing that for themselves right now. So again, that's with that community building theme of they're building their own community of supporters for their own artwork, and they're reaching out directly to potential clients and building those relationships that way, and not going through a gallery.
Yeah, so it sounds like that middle person is kind of being dropped potentially.
Right.
Yeah. So what are some of the best or the top or your favorite of the e-commerce sites from a visual arts perspective?
I think probably the most well known is Artsy. But for individual artists, Artsy, ArtSpace, Artsy and ArtSpace, ArtNet, they all tend to represent galleries or artist estates or very established artists. So it's definitely harder for an artist who doesn't have gallery representation to end up on some of those sites. But there are some newer, smaller art e-commerce sites that are working one-on-one with artists who aren't represented by galleries. So there's art fair, which is the goal of art fair is to help individual artists set up studio visits with potential collectors. So again, trying to kind of cut out that middleman of the gallery in that space.
Yeah, and you're saying that Instagram tends to be working really well for people now too.
Yes, exactly.
On the music side, I'm seeing there's been a change, and I think a lot of this, I've been pushing artists, because I think a lot of artists normally would buy X amount of merch, or like t-shirts, for example, and then they would hope that they will sell some when they announce it, and then the rest they'll keep for tour. Granted, touring is kind of out of the picture right now, so what I've been encouraging our artists to do is take more so like a drop ship model, where you announce a t-shirt or a collection of merchandise and you make it available for like a week, and you announce it, you promote it nonstop for about a week or so, and it's almost like a pre-sale, but you don't announce it as a pre-sale because people are a little weary about pre-sales. So it's more so like, I have this product, and then when they get X amount of sales, they only order what they sold and a little bit extra for like giveaways, and then it's just so they don't actually have to put any money up front, I've seen a couple artists make a couple $100 to a couple $1,000 just by putting out the shirts, making them for sale for a week, and then you only order what you need. And I think I always recommend artists to use what they can. Big Cartel is a very easy way to sell merchandise, and their platform is pretty straightforward. For someone selling a little bit more merch, and have if they're selling CDs and everything else, I always recommend Shopify. Shopify is pretty inexpensive, and it's just the hardest part about selling merchandise is the shipping and coordinating that shipping process. I just helped this artist who sold 700 t-shirts, and he did it through Squarespace, and it was a headache. So I always recommend just try to gauge how much you're going to sell, because if you're going to sell a lot, go through a platform like Shopify that's designed more so for shipping. But I've seen a lot of artists who normally never sold any merch be able to sell a lot of merch right now. And I think mostly because people are home and just buying stuff. So taking advantage of that and creating another form of income for the artist.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Meg, I'm also thinking about just virtual events in general and how musicians are using them, whether it's couch concerts or whether it's partnering, with a venue to go recording there in an empty space. Have you found that there are some kind of best practices that you encourage your artists to use as they're approaching doing some of these virtual events? Yeah,
and part of the documents that we're going to give out to everyone watching is Instagram gave us it's like a 13-page best practices to give away to artists. And I think the most important part is leading up to the performance. You don't want to do a live show and then there's only 2 or 3 people watching. So how do you create little promotional materials that lets people know? The best one that I've seen be successful, and I know this comes more from the professional space, so a lot of artists aren't too familiar with it, but if you have a mailing list, send a calendar invite to everyone on your mailing list after you send the mailing list out, and then all of a sudden it pops up on their phone that they're invited to this event. It can be a little invasive, but if they're on your mailing list and they're your fans and it's only a couple hundred people, worst case scenario, some people get off your mailing list, but it's a good way to say, hey, at 2:00, join my live performance. Also doing really cool stuff like countdown on Instagram. You can do like a little countdown leading up to it, and then people can save it, and then they'll get a notification from Instagram. So I've been seeing a lot of it is like leading up to it. How do you promote people? I've seen people do Facebook events for a live stream. And doing some ads and promoting that. I've seen people do all of that and then also charging, where it's a Zoom link instead of Facebook or Instagram, where you can have, instead of maybe having 100 people on your live, you'll have like 30 people, but they each pay $10. And then you can talk to them after your performance or create like a conversation. And I think part 2 of it is, how do you take the content that you created and then upload it to your YouTube? So edit that live performance, and now you have a live performance that you can put up on your YouTube or your Facebook or Instagram that you can promote post-performance.
Yeah, that's fantastic. You know, Maureen, from the perspective of selling your artwork online, are there any best practices that you would suggest artists keep in mind as they approach it?
Well, Meg brought up a really good point that when you're selling your work online, if you're not used to doing that, the shipping is going to be a huge pain. You know, artwork shipping in general is not easy. It's expensive. It's very difficult to package. And if you're not prepared to do that, you need to bring in an expert or at least a friend who can help. That's definitely something that you need to be very cognizant of if you're selling your work on your website, on Instagram, selling directly to a client. So yeah, that is just, that's one of the benefits of going through a gallery, is that they deal with all of those logistics for you. But you know, shipping artwork can cost anywhere from a couple $100s to a couple $1,000s, depending on what you're shipping and where it's going. Again, kind of thinking through that ahead of time is going to be really, really important for a lot of artists. As for selling directly, yeah, I mean, it's definitely, I think it's a trend that the art world in general is just kind of watching right now. It's so new that I don't know that we necessarily have best practices, but what I've kind of heard from other people that's working really well is, you know, people who already have those collectors who've been interested in their work for years. Now is the time to reach out to them, and also, again, providing all of that supplemental material. So whoever's buying your work wants really good quality images of the work. They might want your artist statement or some writing about why you created this work. They might want images of you actually creating it. Any of that supplemental material that you can provide is going to be crucial.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Kimberlee, what about for the festival side of things, right? Like anything that either you've discovered or you've heard from peers who are transitioning these festivals online, and I know it's very early, but that you found that are kind of best practices or things that people should keep in mind?
Best practices, and this may sound really, really kumbaya-ish, but it all goes back to, I think, creating and maintaining authentically good relationships with your film community, your colleagues in the film world, because I know with local filmmakers that I know here in the DMV, when they are talking about their films and their process and where they are in it, I know that I want to do my best to screen that film, because they are a local filmmaker. They are working very hard. They're small. Their budget is, they're sometimes financially compromised, or maybe it's a member of the community that's a marginalized community. So I want to definitely be able to be there for them. So like I said, I know it sounds pretty simple, but definitely best practice for me is creating and maintaining authentic, good relationships. In terms of anything outside of that, I know that I have leaned on, and my other film colleagues will lean on me for different ways of being able to present films. That's why I'd mentioned the Vimeo affiliate as well as Inventive. But outside of that, that's as much as I've been able to cobble together.
Yeah, that's helpful. Hey, Patty, do we have any questions that we can bring in the mix here?
Yeah, absolutely. There we go. So we do have 3 questions that came in. The first one, I think it's for you, Kimberlee. It is, what is the best platform to premiere a documentary online?
It all depends on if you are thinking that you want to be able to charge for it, so to speak, or if you don't, you can always upload it. And I think one of the better places is YouTube. But if you are thinking that you wanted to have like a site for your documentary, as well as to perhaps be able to gather revenue from it, I definitely think that VHX.TV has been working really well for us. for both of the film festivals that I have now and one I've worked for. So it's a Vimeo, and it's just if you go on Vimeo.com or just Google vhx.tv, then it'll come up, and it's relatively inexpensive, and you do get a lot for it. Like, you can buy a set number of hours. So if you have 2 documentaries that are an hour and a half long, you can buy a 5-hour block or 10-hour block. That's reasonable, and the upload process is simple and seamless. And like I said, it does give you a website/splash page where people can go and sign up for your newsletter. And you can also set it to where you can do pre-sales. So you can upload the video and for a month do pre-sales, then release it for a short period of time. You can do geotagging, so you can only have it screening. If you only want to screen it in Maryland, you can do that. If you want to screen it globally, you can do that. So it's very versatile. So that's what I would recommend. And if the person has any questions, I can definitely give my email address and talk to them offline.
Awesome. And then we have another question for you, Kimberly. For Kimberly, what is your approach to film programming now that people can see the films anywhere? For example, I can now see a film that a film festival is screening in New York City while I am in DC. So you wouldn't want to rescreen that film since there are no restrictions from seeing that film anywhere.
What I try and do is I try and screen content that is new, but with all the competition that's going on now, and everything is virtual and everyone is overstimulated visually now, it is a little challenging. And often the filmmaker will submit their films to all the film festivals that are larger or wherever in the United States. And we may still choose to screen the film. I'm here to support the creator, the creatives, and also to still bring that film to DC. So that person, they may be showing at New Fest and they're here in DC to see it, but not everyone in DC may have seen it. So I'm all about supporting our creatives and still being able to present diverse films here in the DMV. So I may still screen the same film. It just all depends. I hope I answered their question.
The person from the first question just wants to confirm it's vhs.tv, correct?
Sorry. V is in Victor, H is in Harry, X is in xylophone, .tv. So T is in Tom, V is in Victor. If they just Googled Vimeo.com or that it should pop up.
Cool. And then last question that we have that came through is, I just published a book of poetry along with complimentary merchandise. How can I put this out there?
Well, actually, amazingly enough, in 3 weeks, we are celebrating our 10th anniversary of Outright, which is DC's LGBTQ literary festival. And it's virtual, but we will have an exhibitor hall. And so, again, I can give my information to this individual, and for $25, we have you have access to our exhibitor hall. You'll have access to our Discord channel where they'll be able to promote their publication, and a bunch of other opportunities as well. So, and that'll be the entire weekend of July 31st through the 2nd. We'll have just a glorious literary event online. We're working really hard at that. I'm kind of consumed with that right now.
Yeah, that's great. Hey, Mag, I wanted to add a question here too. I was curious whether or not you could give people just a little bit more information about the structure of Backline and how that works and what the impact that you've seen it's had on the artists that end up going through it.
Yeah, so the program, like I mentioned earlier, it's a 12-week program. So the first month of the program, it's the create phase. So what we do is there's no one size fits all. Every artist is very different. We've had artists that come into the program with a full album ready, mixed and mastered, and then we're just creating content. So this could be lyric videos, music videos, animations for social media, just essentially just promotional assets for the rollout. But we've also had artists that come in with like one song recorded and a bunch of demos. Like this current cohort, we had this artist by the name of Bizza Ray, who came into the program with 2 songs, had released an EP last year, and we put her in the studio for 30 to 40 hours a week and connected with her producers, and she was able to do like 30 demos in the first 3 weeks. Like demos is a loose word. These were like almost vinyl records. All she needed was the resources, but she was like ready to go. We didn't ask her to go in for 30, 40 hours a week. She was just like, this is available to me. This is what I want to do. And, now she's finished an album and we're gearing up for like her promotional and marketing plan. The second month of the program is the connect phase. In a pre-COVID world, we would go to LA and New York for a week, and we would introduce them to Apple Music, Spotify, SoundCloud, AudioMac, to attorneys, booking agents, A&Rs. The goal is to basically create a wide spectrum of different roles within the industry, and they can leave New York and LA with a network, people that they can reach out to for their career. With the ultimate goal of like building a team for them. So we're just not meeting random people to go. It's like, how do you, we try to connect them with this management company might be really good for you, or this distribution company might be really good for you. So that's the second month of the program. And then the third month of the program is us taking everything they did on the first month, the connections from the second month, and then planning out the next 6 to 12 months of their career. So this is, how does the rollout plan looks like? What does the marketing plan look like? Who's on your team? Is there a mentor that you really feel like you connected with and you want more support with on building that relationship? Or is there other mentors that you want to connect with? And we set up like one-on-one meetings with them. We've pivoted that to virtual. So we've been doing the connect phase virtually. It's been a little bit more expanded, but it's been very beneficial so far. And I think success stories, we've done record deals, we've done distribution deals, management companies, we increasing streaming, increasing revenue, followers. But I'm more so focused on the community level. We work with 4 to 6 artists every year within the program, but we also host quarterly workshops where we get in 200 to 300 people and we bring these same industry executives to come talk to the community. And we've been able to facilitate record deals even through that process of just bringing executives to the city. And artists that don't even go to the program end up walking away with a record deal or a placement on an album with a bigger artist. So those are just like some of the few. On top of all of that, we offer financial literacy to the artists that we work with and mental health resources. I could talk about it all day though.
That's fantastic. Hey, Maureen, do you mind giving us a rundown of how fellowship.art works as well?
Yeah, there is definitely some overlap with Backline. Again, it's a 12-week program. We work with 4 artists. 3 of the artists are from the Milwaukee area and 1 is from outside the Milwaukee area. And we decided to do that deliberately because one of the, I don't necessarily want to say issues with the Milwaukee art world, but a fact about the Milwaukee art world is that it's very insular. And so we wanted to make sure that there was kind of this cross-pollination of ideas and cross-pollination of bringing Milwaukee artists elsewhere, but also bringing artists from elsewhere to Milwaukee. Obviously, right now, this program is running virtually, so we won't physically be going anywhere, but, that is something we're deliberately trying to do with this program is help Milwaukee artists break into art scenes elsewhere, but also bring other people to the Milwaukee art scene. And with the program, I consider it very concierge to the artists we work with. Some of the artists we work with are really interested in kind of figuring out how they can best work within the art market. So how to sell more of their work, how to have gallery exhibitions, museum shows, increase both the sales and the price of their artwork. Whereas other artists are approaching this more from a project standpoint of they're not necessarily thinking about this in terms of financial success, but they're thinking about this in terms of they need help creating a large-scale exhibition, a large-scale project, a large-scale commission, or rethinking their studio practice, and they need resources and help to do that. So throughout the 12 weeks, I work with each of the artists, or in some cases, artist collaboratives, to really figure out what their needs are and how we can help them best achieve those. Some consistencies throughout the program are, again, we work on financial literacy, how to budget, etc., grant writing, we also make sure that each of the artists has at least 12 high-yield studio visits. So those are studio visits with curators, collectors, other artists, to both make sure that people are really seeing their work, becoming familiar with their work, and also potentially providing opportunities for these artists. And in the ideal world, if we were allowed to travel, again, there would be networking in other cities, Chicago, New York, LA, cities that have much larger art scenes, etc.
Yeah, that sounds fantastic. Those are really, really exciting programs. Well, I want to thank you all for spending a little bit of time with us today and sharing your insights and expertise and the programs that you work with. Patty, you want to take us out?
Yeah, absolutely. We do have one more question for Meg and for Maureen. Someone is wondering if you have any current offerings for people who don't live in the exact cities that we serve, if we have like webinars or different other public-facing events coming up.
I think at the moment, especially this year, especially with everything happening, we pivoted a lot of our outreach and help to more national, and in particular programs like this with the emergency response programs that we're doing in different communities. So the one-on-one consultation meetings and the one-on-one office hours are open and available to anyone that wants to sign up. So as far as like the monetary, like the budget grant and the actual 12-week program, that's only limited to Milwaukee, Detroit, and Cleveland for the music program at the moment. But the goal is to continue to expand this program to other communities across the country.
Yes, and with fellowship.art, our application process just closed, but we also do provide public-facing webinars. We're also working on a series of workshops on writing artist statements and providing some other professional development for artists. Again, it's primarily geared towards Milwaukee artists, but I'm sure anyone can join our virtual webinars. So,
Got it. Well, thank you so much, Maureen, Meg, and Kimberly for being on today. Thank you again, Marianne, for moderating. This is such a powerful discussion about really how to move your business online as an artist and as a creative, and how to keep this engagement with your people. So thank you again for helping DC creatives in this way. Tune in tomorrow, everyone who's on the webinar. Tomorrow's presentation is using the power of negotiation. It is at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. And just a big thank you for being on here. Please sign up for one-on-one consultations with the Generator team, and feel free to share this program with other creatives in your network. A video of this webinar and all of the webinars that we've had so far this week will be available online. So thank you so much.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.